This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for Yakkin with Ken. And Ken is back, and I'm excited about it. Even though he has a topic for today, I'm hoping that he will sort of take us a little bit through his latest journey while he was in Mexico, because I have to say, following his time in Mexico, I fell in love with the country for the first time. I've never seen it in that manner. So thank you, Ken, for sharing that. But today, Ken would like us to pick 3 spots in the world we would like to go back to. And it's not just pick 3 spots, but why? And, you know, I've been scratching my head for almost 24 hours to figure this one out. And one of the places I think I would like to go back to, and those of you listening, you may never have heard of it, or if you have, you're probably wondering, what the heck do I remember from it? But Charlevoix, Michigan. So it's up near the thumb of Michigan, you know. Oh no, Michigan goes that way, whatever, but it's up by the thumb. And I was up there as a young child. And the only thing I really remember from it really are the pictures that my parents took and have been in a photo book all these years. And looking at them, it just makes me feel like, you know, it was really a nice vacation. And I was with mom and dad and my 2 older brothers, and we played on the beach. We stayed in a cottage. And what I just learned recently was, after the first day, my mother told my father we were packing up. That was not a vacation. So what I remember is all wonderful, but what I understand she would have remembered was not so great. And you know, Ken, most of the places I would go back to, I think, are for nostalgic reasons. And I hope that's not because I'm getting older and think that yesterday was a better time, but there's just such beautiful memories in going back and being with family, at least for me.
Yeah.
So where would you like to go?
What's your second one?
Oh my God, I have to come up with the second one. Second one. You know, that probably would be the first time I went to Niagara Falls with my husband. It was the first time I ever learned to just be content and people watch.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't have to go anywhere. We could just sit on a bench and
Yeah.
have a great time. And we've done
that. I've been doing that in Washington Square Park for 70 years or 60 years or whatever it is. Just sit there and watch what goes by. I mean, it's New York and it's life, and it's, you know, it's forever changing. It's never the same experience.
And whenever I see those posts on Facebook from you, it takes me back to, hey, it took me 30 years to understand that you could go out and have fun just by sitting and observing what's around you. So those are 2 of my 3. Geez, my third one. We'll come back to that. You tell me about one of yours.
All right, well, I got a whole list.
Good.
But we're going on a world tour.
Okay.
All right. The first place I think that I would go back to is San Sebastian in northern Spain on the coast of the Mediterranean. It's the Basque country. I mean, you're dealing with the Barcelonians, and you're dealing with tapas, and you're dealing with just Spain. If you've ever been there,
we're losing your sound. You got to get closer to your mic.
Let me put up the volume.
There you go.
Okay.
All right.
Spain is a feeling. There's just an atmosphere in Spain. The time warp is there because things take longer. It goes slower. The waiter doesn't rush over to your table. When you're done, they don't come clear your plate and push you out. It's just a kind of a rhythm to Spain. And San Sebastian is a gorgeous seaport town that in the summer, they have a regatta and all of Spain seems to show up. The teams wear colorful uniform, the red team, the blue team, the green team, silver team, striped team, circle team. Everybody wears, and they carry the, I don't know, what do you call the boats through the city streets down to the shore. And then everybody paddles out and gets in one big long line for the race. And the race is, maybe 20, 25 minutes long. And the celebration starts after the race is over and continues in the town at night, where all the people still wear their uniforms that they wore for the race, and their fans wear their colors.
I love it.
So in the bars, you can see all of the talk, red won and blue was 10th, and there's blue yelling that they really won. And then you're eating and drinking, the tapas, San Sebastian bars during the daytime. If you go in there, you can find a marble table counter with 29 different tapas on it. And you just point to the one you want. He has a long tongue. He takes it, puts it on your plate. You get a whole plate full. You go down the end of the line, you pay the man, and you get the Malbec, the red wine, for like $5 for this. So, I mean, how do you beat that one?
Yeah, absolutely.
My number 2, I'd go back to, is Tuscany. And there's just something about the nutty Italians and their beautiful cities and the way they take care of culture and music and food. You start in Florence, which is a can't miss city. The architecture, the church, everything that's there. And then you go west to Tuscany and go south all the way down to the coast. The only trouble is you have to drive in Italy to do this. And if you've ever tried to drive in Italy, it's impossible. We got the car in Florence, and you're supposed to go west, and none of them said Florence. All the 3 choices you had, none of them were Florence. So you wound up going south to go east to go north before you can go west. I mean, but that's Italy, But Tuscany is just absolutely beautiful. And mountains to the right as you drive, and a plateau, Leah, to your left, and you go down to Siena, and Siena is this brick city. Has a huge arena, central area where it looks like nothing's happening, and at 5 o'clock the waiters show up with the tables and they put them outside, and the sun goes down, and now you're drinking Chianti, and they light the candle, all right. And then you eat Italian food. So how can you miss? My number 3 place that I'd go back to is Albufeira. Albufeira is a coastal town in southern Portugal on the Mediterranean. It's up. You have to walk up a giant hill to get there. But once you get to the top of the hill, here are the restaurants built on the crest of the hill, overlooking the Mediterranean. And you see the boats.
We lost your sound again.
You got it back?
Yeah, now we got it back.
the story of Albufera. It's a fishing town, and the houses are designed that there is a widow's peak at the top. You go up the stairs to this little platform with a circle railing, and the women, the story goes, would look out to the sea every night to see their fishermen husbands come home. And when they didn't spot their husband coming home, that's why they know it was called the Widow's Peak.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But the town itself is built all along the ridge, and there are no menus in any of the restaurants. What you get is the fish of the day. Whatever they caught, you could get if they had a big day, you could have 3 different items on the menu. But if it was a bad day, you could be eating perch, you know. And then, of course, the real deal with Portugal for me is the green wine, the Vinho Verde. It's the only place in the world that makes it out of green grapes. It's a very light, crystal clear, non-tannic wine that is not sweet, but not sour either. It's like in between, and served with fish and a vegetable and a salad. It's like heaven. So all the restaurants are, it doesn't matter which restaurant you go in, you're going to get the same. You're going to get the same meal in each one. But I love the town. I really thought it was a very romantic and beautiful little place. And I said, boy, if I ever get the time, here's one I'll go back to. My next one would be Buenos Aires. Now, you ever been to Buenos Aires?
I've never been to a foreign country other than Canada.
Okay. Well, the are, they think they're the center of the universe. I mean, their culture, their Spanish roots, their late night tango dancing, their food, the Argentinian beef and the Malbec is like insane. And the city looks like Paris. It's got a lot of what you would consider to be typical French architecture, which would be a high stone building with huge, big mortise doors and wrought iron molding on the windows. And sconces and
We lost you again.
And carved
There you go.
stone. It's just a beautiful environment. You don't think you're in South America when you're walking down the streets of Buenos Aires. You think you're in Europe.
Okay.
And then at nighttime, there's only one place you are, and that's Buenos Aires, because we went to go for the tango lesson at midnight, and the guy said, "You're early. We only give lessons starting about 1:15, which really meant 1:45. That's when the lesson begins. So you get a half hour, 45-minute lesson, then you have to have a couple of drinks, and the dancing begins at 3.
Interesting.
And goes all the way to the morning, and then they go to work. And they go dancing first before they go to work. How the hell do you do that? So they have this afternoon siesta, right? From 2:30 to 5. But what a unique world, you know. I mean, dinner, they open at 9 or 9:30. Usually they eat around 10 or 11. I mean, talking New York says, well, it never closes, but I found more life in Argentina and Buenos Aires at night than I did in New York, because it's not just some places are open. All the places are open. It's a wonderful city, great and inexpensive too. Well, you know, they have a section called La Boca. It's the mouth of the river where the poor houses are. The poorest people live there, And to kind of highlight or cover their poverty, all the houses are painted in bright colors.
Oh,
There's
interesting.
yellow and red and blue. It looks joyous. You know, it's probably painful as hell to live there. But I mean, if you're just passing through and say, wow, what a pretty look. You know? Anyway, so that's Buenos Aires. My next place that I have a soft spot for ever since I went there is up in Montana. Now, I'm a guy who likes to ride a horse. And I was hitchhiking through Montana when I was young, and I found this place called Livingston, Montana. It's just above Wyoming, and it has the Yellowstone River running through it. And I took a 50-mile river craft boat ride down there, pontoon boat that went down the rapids, and it went all the way into the Yellowstone Park,
Wow.
which is just insane. You know, it's pretty neat because you leave your car by the Yellowstone and you get in this guy's Jeep. He drives you 50 miles up north and puts you in the boat, and then you float back down to your car. So
Interesting.
the thing about Livingston is the mountains. There's just something about the Rocky Mountains at night that you hear the sounds in the woods, you know, all the animals and all the birds. And it's just so high up that you see 4 or 5 weather systems. If you look west towards California, you can see, well, it's going to rain around 1 o'clock, then it's a clear thing, and there's more clouds coming in later. I mean, you haven't been in a place like that is so beautiful. It's just one of the nicest spots in the whole world. My number 6 is Austin, Texas. Now, Austin should not really be considered Texas because it's its own Texas. I mean, and they tell you that. There's a sign that when you go into Austin says, we're weird and we like it that way. And you know, this isn't oil town cowboy Dallas or Houston. This is artistic, sensitive, more like Nashville or Asheville. It's a music town. And you got Willie Nelson there. And so everything revolves around guitar, music, bars, shit kickers, fun people. It's got the University of Texas there. So you got a bunch of young kids carrying on. And it's a wonderful town. There's 6th Street, I believe, name of it. And it goes on for like 6 or 7 blocks, with maybe 4 or 5 honky-tonk saloons on each street. So you can just walk in, not have to pay, just sit down, listen to some music. You like it, throw some money in the tip jar, and spend 5-6 hours walking down this one street. And then by the end of the night, you see the guy who played in bar number 2 is now down in bar number 8, and he's playing again. You know, and they just keep switching musicians. And if you can play, you can get up and go up on stage with them. You know, I got pictures of me playing guitar with these absolutely wonderful people. It's a fun town. You can't miss if you go to Austin. Number 7 is Istanbul.
Ooh.
Istanbul, Turkey. The word for me is exotic. They have a spice market that is located in a structure called the Grand Bazaar. You go under this street, under this big arch, and then you come into like maybe 40 blocks square of the wildest Saturday afternoon junk fair you ever went to. They just sell everything. And then you get to the spice market, there are barrels and barrels and barrels of all the imported spices. Don't forget, Turkey was the first place where the East met the West. You know, there's the western side of Istanbul, which is European, and it's actually in Europe. And the eastern side is in Asia, and it's Muslim. So you get a real cultural blend in this city. And the shopping is insane. It is just insane. The markets go on and on and on and on. And after a while, you want to buy a Turkish whirling dervish kind of outfit and come out. And then the food, you know, the little spices with all tiny little pieces of meat, almost like an awak, you know, and with baba ganoush and all the eggplant. You know, it's a wonderful city. Really enjoy it. And you mentioned before, you know, tell us about Oaxaca. Well, I would put Oaxaca as my number 8. It is my home in the winter. I've been there for 7 years now. And it is just a gem of a city. It's all the way in southern Mexico. There's only one state of Mexico between that and Guatemala, Chiapas. But Oaxaca is in the south part of Mexico, up in the mountains. It's up about as high as Denver. It's about 5,000 feet up. So it's temperate. You get highs in the mid 70s during the day, goes down to the high 50s at night. So you wear a light jacket early in the morning, and then the rest of the day is beautiful. And then it gets hot in the afternoon, but not what people typically think of Mexico, like, you know, that you're going to get fried.
Right.
Yeah. And Oaxaca has got a lot of expats, lots of Americans and Canadians who are artists. They're writers, poets, sculptors, painters, craft workers. Oaxaca itself is 40% indigenous, which means that's pre-1600 Spanish. So you have a huge Indian population that's making all kinds of woven jackets, shirts. The Zapotecs and the Mixtecs come into Oaxaca with their wares from the mountains every day and sell it downtown. Oaxaca is also known as a place that trains cooks internationally. So it's just not a burrito town, you know. I mean, it is high class food they cook everybody's food. And if you want proof of that, just go to New York City, go into an Italian restaurant, go into a Spanish restaurant, go into a gypsy restaurant, and you'll find a Mexican cooking. I mean, they are fantastic cooks, the Mexicans. They really, you know, if you have 40 different chilies to cook with, you know, and that's them. So I love the town, and there's just spontaneous music in the street. People walking through the street, playing music, singing, etc. Some of them are poor and asking for money. Others are just artists and want to play. And then at night, all of the local places always have some kind of singer or guitar player, piano player. It's a joyous town, a really joyous town.
What I loved about the pictures you sent from there is the colorful buildings and the murals. I mean, you know, you can see that in an American city, maybe, you know, on one street where murals have been painted, but nothing like what we saw in your pictures. They were just gorgeous.
And there are certain, like Jalilaco, there's a section of Oaxaca that is known for murals. But you're right, in that murals are everywhere in Oaxaca, and especially on older, beaten up walls They love to paint and use the architecture of the wall as part of the painting. You see fantastic birds and dragons, and the Mexicans also have the Day of the Dead, and so their culture is full of the images of the dead. So skeletons are common. You see them all everywhere, and they're not scary. They're funny. They put funny hats on them. They dress them up. They put cigars in their mouth. The kids walk around with skeletons because it's not a scary thing. It doesn't signify anything weird or.
No sound again.
It's part of
There.
the cycle. So you add all that up, the food, the culture, the art, the murals, the people, you have one hell of a place. And what's really nice is not a lot of people know about it. They have tourists, but it's not a tourist city. It's an old Mexican village up in the mountains. So it's a kind of fine for me. So if the voice went out and nobody heard that part of my story, that would be fine with me. Next place I'd like to go back to is Heidelberg in Germany. I lived there for 2 years as a guest of the Army. And it was probably one of the 2 best years of my life. That culture there, it's Germany, and I was a little afraid to go to Germany. Jews don't like to go to Germany. A lot of reservations about what I was going to find there. But my mother was from there, so I knew the other side. I got there, I found the most friendly people in the world. They were just so open, warm-hearted, invite you into your house for a meal at a drop of a hat. Heidelberg was never bombed in either war, so it maintains its 16th century charm. Downtown Heidelberg has no cars, just cobblestone streets, restaurants, and residential living. So you can walk around down there and just get lost. You're back in the 16th century. There was a place that I used to go to called the Cobb 54. It was 2 floors down from street level. They had built it somewhere during the 40s as a protection in case they ever got bombed. So it was an old bomb shelter. It was never used, and they converted it into a student club with music. I mean, that's the kind of stuff you find there. It's on the Neckar River. It's a beautiful, windy little river. And on the top of the hill is a 12th century castle that is monstrous, that dominates the whole city. So it's like trolley cars and street walking and cafes and Europe cafe society. One of the nicest places you'll ever go to. And finishing out the old top 10 is Budapest in Hungary. I was so surprised. I could not believe that what I found there. Now, Budapest is not, it's an Eastern, hard, strong buildings, a lot of stone, not the most attractive, but the old Jewish section 7, was preserved, and young Hungarian entrepreneurs came into this old section, and they left it pretty much. I mean, you walk down the street, it looked like the Germans had just left. It's like 1938, empty streets, solemn looking buildings, etc. Except you'd see a little blue light on an alleyway. And if you followed the blue light to the next blue light, there was a door. And you go in the door, it's like 3 buildings back off the street. And you walk in and there is a lounge, a bar, a restaurant, a coffee house, a disco, everything all interconnected into this one huge building with maybe 10 or 12 rooms in it, all for entertainment. And in there, you see a map of other places that you would not know unless you looked at the map. And they're called the ruin bars because the outside of the buildings were never fixed up after they ruined it. And now these entrepreneurs have made it an entertainment.
We lost you again.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
I mean, it's just, it was just an entrepreneurial genius that thought up this idea of taking a rough section of town and turning it into an all-night extravaganza of one bar, one restaurant, one coffee. And this thing goes on all night.
Nope, we lost you again.
I wonder what keeps happening.
I think it's every time you move.
The ruin bar section of Budapest. Next place I would go back to is in Cambodia. It's called Siem Reap. I lived in a hut built up on stilts over a little bit of inlet. The most unusual setting for a place, but Siem Reap is on the Mekong River, and where we were staying was in the Mekong Delta. And it is just this old world Asian, tiny little walking streets, no sidewalks, nothing, no cars, just a walking community of one restaurant after another, serving stuff I couldn't pronounce, nor can I really describe it. A lot of seaweedy looking stuff with a lot of seafood in it. And it was delicious, delicious. It's a very unique place. And you get there by a tuk-tuk, you know, the typical Southeast Asian, a guy on a motorbike with a two-seat with a little roof over it, you know, and he pedals you downtown, you know. Let's take the bike down for dinner, dear. Okay. So that's Siem Reap. Is one of my favorite cities of all time is Hanoi in Vietnam. Hanoi is a very unique city. It's Asian and it's European. Don't forget the French were there before they threw them the hell out. But they didn't throw out their restaurants, and they didn't throw out their cuisine, and they didn't throw out the fact that they learned how to cook like the French do. Now, the Vietnamese cook everything in a big pot. You know, most of it is noodles, vegetables, some kind of meat. But the French added all the sauces. And in Hanoi, you can eat a magnificent meal, a Michelin quality, high level, 7-course meal, and spend $10. You know, I mean, where do you get that kind of combination? And if you walk around, the people of Vietnam are gentle, they're kind, they're soft. God knows why we ever got involved in that country. I mean, it just breaks your heart when you go there and you meet these people. They're all growing vegetables. They all, there's no garbage. They make food they serve it, they eat it, what's left over, the animals eat. You don't find garbage cans, you don't find plastic, you don't find styrofoam. You go into a grocery store, you bring your own bag, you pick your vegetables. If you're too lazy to grow your own, you have to go to the store and buy it. But it just seems they know how to live. You know, they're living with their environment. They're not hurting it. They're not doing any damage to anybody.
Right.
God knows why we ever went there. It just breaks my heart every time I think of it. But I'm talking about the city itself, which I really love, and that's Hanoi, Vietnam. Next place I like is in the old USA, north of San Francisco, in Marin County, which is absolutely gorgeous, right? I mean, you have to have a ton of money to live there. And the houses there are just magnificent because they overlook the Pacific, or they look south and you see over the bay, you see the bridge. But they have a place called Mount Tamalpais. It's the biggest mountain north of San Francisco before you get all the way up to the big trees. And this was an old hippie conclave back in the 60s and 70s. That people would go up to Mount Tamalpais for the weekend, you know. You would go start on Friday night and you would wander back Monday or Tuesday if you could walk. And the view is
You're fading again.
that's San Francisco, you know, it's just this idyllic spot in the world. I would go back there in a flash. Next place is in Croatia on the Adriatic, opposite Italy, called Split. Now it's a little coastal town. And the thing about Split is that the food is a combination of Eastern, like Croatia, Hungary, you know, heavy stews, big chunks of meat. And the other side of the Adriatic is the Italians, you know, with their Italian red sauce and their pastas and all that. Well, in Croatia, the culture's blended and you get cooks that have worked in both places. So you are probably eating the best cuisine around. It is a very unique menu, a lot of hand-picked appetizers and maybe a soup and a typical salad, and then this combination of meat and vegetables, potatoes, etc. The thing about it is that in Split, because it's on the side of the mountain going down to the Adriatic, is that you have vertical dining. You'll have a restaurant where, let's say on floor 4 is the restaurant's kitchen. And they bring it outside, and outside is the steps that come up from the beach all the way up to the mountain. And on each step is a table with 2 chairs and a candle. So you laugh your ass off because the waiter comes out and he runs down 5 steps, delivers the meal, runs back up 5 steps, goes inside, comes out with somebody's soup, goes up 3 steps, gives him his soup, comes out. And this guy, you know, 40,000 steps a night, you know. But when did you ever eat on a restaurant that had steps to heaven? You know,
Right.
Really was an unusual place. Then how much time I got? I'm almost done.
You have enough time to finish. Absolutely.
Okay. Next place is Ushuaia. Ushuaia is in Argentina. It is the most southern town in South America. It's where the Atlantic meets the Pacific by Tierra del Fuego. And you take a boat from there and you go out and you see the glaciers. And the glaciers are these ice formations that are blue. And to get to the color blue, they have to be at least 1 million years old. So it's not every day that you get to go to a place where you can see the Atlantic and the Pacific and some glaciers all at the same time. Marvelous place. Coming down the end of the list, I'm coming to Bogota, Colombia, one of my favorite cities in the world. In case you don't know, Bogota, Colombia has 9 million people. It is bigger than New York City in terms of the population, and the amount of culture and food and entertainment is not enough. You can also take a side trip from Bogota and go to Medellin. And Medellin is the home of Pablo Escobar, the drug dealer, who is renowned in that town. He's famous, he's loved. He built schools, he built hospitals, he did all kinds of social things for poor people. He used the drug money in a very constructive way. And if you wanted to go see his house, which is on the top of the mountain, you take the escalator, the outside escalator, a series of 7 escalators that he built into the mountain so that people could get up and see it. I mean, it is a drug dealer, right? With a social context. 2 more. I had a place in Maui. I used to go out every year. Now, Maui is as lush as it comes, you know, and it's got the wonderful Hawaiians. You know, they're the friendliest people in the world. I mean, they never stop laughing. They're big, they're jolly, they're fun, very open-minded. They laughed because they said, listen, it's so easy to drive in Hawaii because the roads only go around the periphery of the island. So, because they got all the mountains in the middle. So you never have to make a left-hand turn. You just get on the road and you just keep going right. You'll finally get back to where you started. And so Maui also has the biggest waves. You know, the surfing contest takes place there, and they have the biggest whale. And then you go see the humpback whale. You never forget that.
We're losing you.
Come shooting up out of the water, and then they make this big dive back. It's a gorgeous place. You ever get a chance to go to Maui? And then the last on my list is New York, New York. I mean, what can I say about New York that I haven't said in these last 80 years? I mean, to me, New York has the best of the world in terms of its food, its entertainment, its night, its building, its people. You get around on the subway like quick, and then you see the rest of the world because everybody from the world comes here. So you really don't have to go out to see it. They're coming to see you. So and if I go to Greenwich Village and sit in Washington Square Park by NYU, which is one of the biggest tourist sites in New York. Everybody says, go to the Village, go to there. And I sit on the bench, and I now am one of the regulars that are in the park that we all know one another. There's these people that have been coming to the park for 50, 60 years. And we just laugh at one another because, you know, isn't there any place else you want to be? You know, isn't there anything else you want to go do? Well, no, I've gone seen the world, but I always come back here because this is home. So that's my little tour of the world for today.
Well, you know, it's a great tour. For all of you listening on some of the spots that Ken was talking about, I went and did a quick search on my computer to see what they look like. And I mean, they're beautiful, okay? And, you know, some of us may not have that luxury of actually getting to travel to some of these places, but our world is small enough now on the internet that we can see and enjoy different areas. And like I said in the beginning, when Ken was in Mexico, I got to see Mexico in a totally different light than I've ever seen it before. And I have to thank you for that, because I saw the beauty of it. It wasn't just, a resort someplace, or it wasn't
No, I
just,
don't go to them.
well, and that's smart, because when you go to a country, you want to see what it's really like. You
Right.
want to be part of the culture. And obviously that's what you and Jill did this past winter. So one quick question. For 2 years, you couldn't go down to Mexico. Were many of your friends who were down there, was this their first time back as well? Or do they live there year round?
Both.
Okay.
We have friends that are Americans from both coasts. A lot of Seattle people, Portland people, and New England people, and a lot of Canadians from Alberta all the way to Ontario. So those are the snowbirds that come down and go back home. But then there's the expatriates that live there, the Canadians and Americans that have moved there. And, I'm now, I teach English to the waiters in the restaurants and stuff. So I'm part of the management of some of the places. I know the owners and the managers. And so I have a lot of Mexican friends now that I'm friendly with and go to their homes and stuff. So for me, it's home. It's home. I live in two places. I live here, and then I live in Oaxaca.
Well, it absolutely is beautiful. So I'm going to suggest that our listeners go to your website. I'll have the link in the show notes, because you'll be able to see all the beautiful pictures that Ken took. And I'm looking forward to more journeys with you. It's
Good.
It's a great time to be back. So
Thank you,
thank you.
Karen.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye now.
Adios.